ROI of the QA team is usually sort of hidden. We cannot calculate the impact of bugs that have been fixed before they got to production, right? At the very beginning, it seems like everything is going smooth, but under the hood, we are building the bad foundation. Dev team will start firefighting with the bugs instead of developing the new features and bringing the new values, more important values to the users and end customers. We increased the test efficiency by 10%. It went from 75 to 85%. It's sort of when you're 100% sure that your product is right, but you want to check it to be even more sure. And investing in the good QA leadership and the good QA team is the way important here, because when you are investing in these aspects, you first of all investing in the quality of your product and the long-term success of this product.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Devtorium Podcast. This is our already sixth episode, and today I, Daria, one of marketing specialists at Devtorium, will be together with you diving into very business impacting topic, which one often flies under the radar. And this is the hidden ROI of great QA leadership. I'm joined by Nadiia, one of our great senior QA engineers. Welcome. And can you tell us a bit about your journey in QA and how you got started in Devtorium?
Hi, Daria. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here and hope you will enjoy this podcast and you will find this information useful for yourself and for your career or your business. I'm Nadiia. I'm the QA and product professional with more than 10 years of experience in IT. Throughout my career, I've been working in the different domains and areas in FinTech, healthcare, compliance, SaaS solutions, eCommerce solutions. I have an experience of building testing strategies, testing approaches for the different projects with the different levels of complexity. In my journey, I have started in quality assurance as a QA engineer. I passed through the roles such as QA lead, QA manager, and eventually moved to the product management, which is the I'm calling it shifting left my testing and my quality as much as I can. That's pretty much it about my journey. I'm patient about technologies. I'm patient about the quality and products, everything related to that. So hopefully I will be able to bring the value for you.
From your perspective, what does great QA leadership really mean today?
All right. Great QA leadership. I want to start from the small talk about these terms, management and leadership. Manager and leader. Management, it's more about the hard skills of the person, of the professional. Hard skills about how to get from point A to point B. What I mean that you have some situation, you have some KPIs. We are usually tracking those KPIs, metrics. We are tracking the defect density, testing efficiency, test case coverage, and much more other KPIs and metrics that can be captured on the project. And QA manager and manager in general, it's about the hard skills, how to track them, why do we track them, and what are the ways to go from point A, where we're starting at the project, to point B, where we want to be. Speaking about the leadership, it's more about the soft skills of the person, how this journey from the point A to point B will go. And today, from my experience, in the past, the QA manager role was more operational. It doesn't mean that was less professional. No, because the great QA leader or QA manager is the great combo of management skills and leadership skills. When you know how to do from point A to point B, where you want to be, and you have enough skills to make this journey smoothly for the team, for the project, for the business, for the product owners, and eventually end users.
Can you unpack leadership a bit more and give an example of how it changes the way QA teams operate?
All right. The how it changed the way QA team operates. Leadership is about, to me, leadership and great leadership or great management. It is about empowering QA team to be not just the gatekeeper, to be not the checkpoint at the end, but be the fully embedded to the team. And by fully embedded to the team, it means that quality is work by design within their software development lifecycle. When the quality is added to each of these stages in this train, and the approaches are designed in such a way to pass through each of these phases as smoothly as we can and with the best and biggest profit for the team. Today, we are living in the very fast changing world, and this touches technologies as well. This touches all the products. This regards the area or domain this product is. And the QA leader or any manager should be, first of all, very adaptive to all these changes. And they should be able to adopt these changes to all these stages and make it smoothly and right for the team. Great QA leader needs to know how to work with the different level of professional skills of the QA engineers, different level of involvement of the product manager, because we have many situations when different projects and different teams require different approaches and strategies. We have product managers who are very involved in the life cycle of the product. They are very open, they are ready to communicate, they're ready to share the information. And we have product managers who are not ready to be involved fully to all the stages, to all the levels, to all the communication. They want to give one-time information, and you need to take it. You need to be able to take it. And the adaptability of the QA team and becoming a part of all the processes, it is one of the biggest thing that great QA leaders should embed to the project, to the team.
How do you measure the ROI of QA in practical terms for a client or product owner? Please tell us more about it.
This is a very interesting story. Actually, calculating the ROI for the QA team or of the QA team, it's not the very straightforward story. It's not the very simple task, because the ROI of the QA team is usually sort of hidden. We cannot calculate the impact of bugs that have been fixed before they got to production, right? So we have some bugs that got to production and we know the impact, and we had some bugs that are prevented to went to production, and this is hard to calculate what would be the impact. So that's why it's pretty difficult to calculate the actual ROI of the QA team and impact on the product and project in general. However, we need to understand that the ROI is impacted by the reduced number of defects in production, reduced number of critical defects in production, reduced support cost by the bugs that are caught earlier. And increase the overall satisfaction of the customers, of the users, increase the revenue from the product. From the practical perspective, how we can do this? One of the examples from my projects was that when I joined the team, we had the test efficiency KPI. That was calculated as 75%. So what does it mean practically? That 25% of the bugs, they have been found by the end users. What we have done to work with this. First of all, we again shift left testing as much as we could, and we shift left testing as much as we can. And next thing, we also involved QA engineers to support process. So the QA team started triaging bugs together with support. To better understand how the customers think, what bugs they are found, and why they treated them as a bug, how the end users use our application, and what we can do with that, how we can improve this process, how we can improve our test cases. We improve the efficiency of the test cases, and what it gave us in the short term, that was 1 quarter, we increased the test efficiency by 10%. It went from
Great.
75 to 85%.
Wow.
10% in 3 months. We need to think that what it gives us. We cannot calculate we can partially calculate some money because it is at least reduce the money we spent on support. It also increases the overall confidence in the releases. We now started feeling more confident that the product can be successfully released in the planned date. We was able to see the profit by the user feedback, the positive feedback. We increased the user confidence in the product. That was the real actual ROI. Another example is the regression testing, one of the pain point for all QA teams. Regression testing, it's time consuming and very boring for QA's process because you need to do that each and every release, each and every milestone increment in order to make sure that newly introduced features are not impacted the previous features we released. So when I joined one project, they had the regression testing that took about 10 working days, which was pretty long for the size of the product and the size of the team we had at that point. We introduced some techniques. We are usually increasing the regression testing time by introducing the automation testing. Automation testing is also a very expensive thing and requires some time for the tests to be automated. That's why, in order to be able to react faster with the limited resources that we had at that time, we didn't have the QA automation at that point. We introduced some risk-based testing. We revised the efficiency of the test cases, and we also separated a little bit of the processes because that was the SaaS solution, and we had the part that was the platform changes and implementation configuration changes. We completely separated these two things. Tested configurations during the functional testing and the actual implementation phase, tested configurations directly on the customer's environment, not the production, the pre-production environments. And separately, we tested the platform part. And that helped us to reduce the regression testing to 8 working days within the first quarter of the implementing these changes. That was also the win that impact the final ROI for the product, and not just by increasing this time for the regression, but we need to think that there is one hidden component that is also increase that the number of releases, because now we can releasing faster and we can get the feedback faster. That definitely impact the success of the product.
What I can say from our side, from my marketing ROI, it's also hidden, but we count it in a different way. So yeah, really, thank you for this great stories. And so let's just jump into another topic. Let's now talk about collaboration. Can you tell us how does great QA leadership impact cross-functional collaborations, especially between devs, products, and business teams?
Yeah, it's a very great, interesting, and valuable topic, I think. We usually treat QA teams, as I already said, as a gatekeeper and checkpoint at the end of the flow. We remember the waterfall models of the software development. We remember the even V model when the QA just reacted after the phase is ended. Today, QA team should be more embedded to the process, more embedded to all the stages. This is the scene of the good QA leadership and QA management. And the collaboration is essential in the product success in general. And quality is one of the main point in success, in the product success. Collaboration is why it is very important. Today there is no tools that can build the product. People are building product. People is building the product, right? And even considering that AI is in place, AI should be directed and led by professional.
Absolutely
That's
agree
why,
with you.
yeah, that's why professionals and collaboration is way important in all the product success stories. We know the great example when the billion products are built by the small group of people. But that group of people, even Telegram, for example, they have, I believe, about, it's a big product. They have about 100 persons of staff, something like that. So
True.
it's way big product with such a small team. And this is all to me, it is about the right way of collaboration, right way of understanding, and the ability to hear each other. We no longer thinking about the layers, sorry, in the software development, in all the collaboration, all the operations. Any in the team can reach out to their managers, leads, product managers, owners, and this is about uh, the trustful relationship. This is about the transparency. And it's also very important in outsource stuff, because
Mhm.
outsource is, maybe this is the topic of our further discussion,
Mhm.
is sometimes treated as something separate from the product. But when we are talking about the product,
Mhm.
everyone is important, and the collaboration between these team members, the empathy, the being clear, explaining your point of view, asking questions, being in the comfortable environment, it is very important. And this is the task of all managers on all levels, in all areas of the
Absolutely.
product.
Mhm. So, guys, if you loved what you heard today, please hit follow on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and head out to our Devtorium.com to see how we can help you bring your next big idea to life. Well, before we dive into topic of outsourcing that we will also definitely discuss, let's also discuss leadership and how it helped to prevent conflicts and such situation, because I think that the collaboration between devs and QAs is really important, and it's a place where somebody can have some arguments and conflicts. So tell a bit more about that.
Yeah, it's true. Good question. Regarding this, how the good leadership or the right leadership helps to prevent such a situation, I would say that fortunately, I have never been in such a big conflicts in
Mm-hmm.
my work experience at my projects. Maybe this also thanks to the soft skills of the people I work with. Always who have been working with, and but definitely in today's world when the things are changing very fast, when the priorities are changing very fast, when the technologies are designing, developing, when we have competitors and our product should go successfully to their goals, and we are establishing those goals, changing sometimes them, considering the feedback from market. Uh, a lot of things are going on everywhere, and it is pretty stressful. This all the stress, it definitely impacts the human decision, definitely impacts sometimes even human behavior. And we definitely have the arguments when we are talking about some technologies, when one developer thinks it should be like this, another developer thinks it should be like that. We're thinking about the architecture, the tool that should be selected or chosen for to address some specific things. And that's not very easy sometimes. And here where you should be a real leader and you should show your soft skills. You should show the empathy. You should show the instead of finding who should be blamed, and instead of blaming anyone in something, or who did what wrong, or who provided the wrong or bad decision or suggestion, you should stay focused on your goal despite all this conflict and tension situations. The leader should stay focused on the goal, on the final outcome that we want to achieve, and think about the how to bypass the situation, bypass it in the smooth way
Mm-hmm.
without going through the all the challenges that exist. We still need to stay focused on the final result, and in that way it also helps to the team to see that despite we had this challenge, we achieve what we wanted to achieve. That also creates the feeling of being valuable and being heard in the team, because it conflicts, they are exist to help us to see some another side of the story, and they are
Yes.
very important in any sort of relationships. It is the question how you pass through these conflicts. You can either just argue with that, or you can hear that. And I'm leaning towards to build the environment where everyone is heard. That's why I'm always even pushing the QA engineers I work with to ask questions, to collaborate, to give the feedback, to share their thoughts. And this is helps to bypass a lot of conflicts, because we are doing this all the time and everyone is already adopted to it, to hear
Mm-hmm.
and accept the point of view of other team members.
If I were a QA specialist, I would definitely like to work at your team as, and if you said that you had never met any conflicts, I think that's like truly conflict situation. I think that's amazing. So one day maybe I will join your QA team. It's
Awesome.
you advertised very nice. You told about a great leadership when it's really very responsible person and very involved in a process person. But what about poor leadership? Sometimes this happens, and can you tell us what really problematic leader in a QA can provide team with, and what is the cost of such decision?
It's actually it's on this a very sad situation when it happens, but it happens. It's true, and how we it's not very noticeable at the very beginning of the development or of the
Mhm.
involving this QA manager or leader that has poor leadership or management skills. At the very beginning, it seems like everything is going smoothly. We are not finding such many issues. We are not
Mhm.
escalating such many things. Sometimes even we see that releases are going smoothly, but under the hood, we are building the bad foundation, because we are not establishing the right processes. We are not establishing the right approaches. We are not thinking about the risks, scalability, maintainability, support, and a lot of other things. And when it comes to product growth, when the product begins to grow, when new customers have started joining, when we started building new features on the top, we started seeing that first of all that bugs appears in production, and instead of being found by QA team, they are being found by the end users. And it happens that sometimes a bugs found by the end users. It's also acceptable, and it's fine in the normal process. We're all human, and there are even sort of different understanding on how the product should behave. It's always present. But when it happens frequently, and when it becomes the normal practice, it's a big thing. At that stage, the team start being more reactive instead of being proactive. This is the big thing of the poor QA leadership. Another part of this would be that cost of support will increase significantly. Another part of this, that dev team will start firefighting with the bugs instead of developing the new features and bringing the new values, more important values, to the users and end customers, because they will stay focused on the bugs that are found, on the customer satisfaction with these specific problems, because they are escalating. They are escalating that they cannot live with this problem. This is the thing of the poor QA leadership, that it's also doable. After the changing the QA leader, you can completely change the situation, but you need to take a big step back to change the foundation of all this, change the approaches, the strategies, and move in the slightly different direction with the QA team and approaches to the testing.
So let's now discuss the outsourcing environment that you have already mentioned. And how do you approach QA leadership there? Please tell us.
Working in the outsourcing environments, it could be and challenging and exciting. You have no concerns here from my side. I never had the concerns working in the QA environment. In my experience, I was able to build the trustful relationship with all the customers I work with through the outsource company. So I can say that if you're talking about the good leadership, there should not be a difference between working in the outsource environment, outstaff environment, freelance environment, or directly on the product. Throughout my career, I met the outstanding professionals from the outsourcing and outstaff companies, and I met less professional people working directly on the product. So it doesn't matter in what environment you actually work in, or from what environment you come to the product. Yeah. It's mostly about your personal skills and characteristics. Working through the outsourcing companies, we need to first of all build the trustful and transparent relationships to make it clear to the customers what are our goals here, to understand first of all the business needs, business goals, and user needs, what the problem this product address. And then it's very important for the outsourcing professional to start bringing values as soon as we can, to show your professionalism. Because very often outsourcing QA is treated as a cost reduction, sort of. The customers sometimes think that this is they can invite the outsource or outstaff professional at the end of the process, and that will bring them the value. That will definitely bring them some value. but not as big, as high, as important as it would be if they would invite this professional at the very beginning of the development. Here is the difference. So my suggestion or my point here is to for the outsourced professionals to start showing their professionalism as soon as they can, give a value, provide the feedback, provide their inputs, and not hesitate and not staying to not stay hidden, to not stay and waiting for something. We need to show that we are transparent and we are sharing the same goals as customer.
So, as you mentioned in your speech, you very often meet with one of the misconceptions that it's better to take QA at the end of the project when they just estimate the final outcome. Well, that's really unfortunate, but maybe you met any other misconceptions and any such stereotypes about QA at outsourcing, and what's your approach to changing this narrative?
Okay, yeah, great question. And as I mentioned it, the one of the main and biggest misconception is that when QAs are treated, QA team are treated as the cost reduction, and are treated as the gatekeeper, the last point at the flow. So we designed all the product. We have the ready to market from our opinion product, and at that stage we inviting the outsourcing or outstaff QA team that should test it and provide the feedback. This is the one of the biggest mistakes sometimes customers are doing, because it's sort of when you're 100% sure that your product is right, but you want to check it to be even more sure. uh, so the quality, it's not about testing. Testing will provide you the results, will provide you the list of bugs, will the testing as a process will provide you the deviation between the requirements and the actual behavior. But in order to have quality, which is the long-term perspective for the product success, you need to invite the QA engineer as soon as possible. And investing in the good QA leadership and the good QA team is the way important here, because when you are investing in these aspects, you first of all investing in the quality of your product and the long-term success of this product. You invest in the right foundation. With Devtorium QA engineers, we are trying to build, first of all, trustful relationships and show this to the customers. Show this that we can bring the value not just at the end. We can start from the very beginning. One of the strategies that we are trying to force on all the projects, it is the shift left testing strategy that involves the QA engineers as soon as possible at the beginning of the SDLC, reviewing the requirements. We're starting from static testing instead of starting with dynamic just testing. We're providing the feedbacks earlier, and this prevents the defects before they even been written in the code, before they even coded, or at the documentation stage, or even before the documentation stage, if we start participating during the discussion, the first discussion of the product or project development. That's the big win in order to bypass this misconception.
The final question: what should companies that are right now choosing a QA partner or maybe evaluating their QA leadership maturity, what advice would you give them to choose the best option, or maybe just the very working option that will help them to drive their project right?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. And I would recommend to think about this from the two perspectives. First of all, if you have the stability on the project, it's first thing that everything is fine. But by stability, I mean healthy stability. When bugs are found earlier, they are caught, they are fixed. You have some KPIs, they are also stable. But another part of this is to measure the QA maturity by their inputs. By inputs, I mean the feedbacks they are given, the decision influencer. They should be the decision influencer, because when the product or project managers making some decisions for their further product success, the QA's input is very valuable, because that input is on the overall product quality, right? And the overall product quality is the very big part of the project and product success on the in the long-term perspective. So we need to evaluate this input. And another important aspect is when your QA leader or QA manager is more proactive than reactive. Definitely, we should have some reactive approaches and some reactive strategies that will help us to bypass some situation when they occur. But the majority of our actions should be focused on the preventive actions and preventing mechanisms. That's probably my main suggestions here.
So, yes, it's bring us to the end of the sixth episode of Devtorium Podcast. Nadiia, thank you so much for joining our conversation today and sharing your great insights and really valuable advice. It's really clear that QA leadership isn't just about testing, it's also about collaboration and driving real business value. So, if you are thinking how quality fits into your organization, I hope this episode will give you some practical frameworks or some inspiration. And yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks everyone. Thanks you, Daria, for inviting.